Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Armageddon. Today we're going to be featuring a Brawl deck with Ebondeath, Dracolich as our commander, as part of our series of Brawl videos featuring commanders from adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Ebondeath is a sticky threat, because if he dies, you can leave him in the graveyard instead of putting him back into the command zone, and cast him from out of the graveyard whenever another creature, either one of yours or the opponent's, dies, which means that you can circumvent having to pay the additional commander tax for replaying your commander. Ebondeath also has Flash, so you can time recasting him out of the graveyard quite easily. So the natural home for Ebondeath is in one of my favorite archetypes for mono black in Brawl, Sacrifice. Let's look at the deck, starting with our ramp. We're pretty much playing all of the ramp spells that make it possible to cast Ebondeath on turn 3. If we are extremely lucky, we can even cast him on the first turn. Chrome Mox and Dark Ritual make it possible to have very explosive starts. Mox Jasper doesn't ramp out our commander, but as we have other spells we want to ramp into, it's great to have when our commander is in play. We have all the usual suspects at 2 mana, Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Guardian Idol, Jet Medallion, Mindstone, Ornithopter of Paradise, Solar Transformer, and the Iron Crag. Embermouth Sentinel puts a basic swamp on top of our library when it enters, but if our commander is in play, it puts the land directly onto the battlefield. Dragonstorm Globe puts a +1/+1 counter on our commander if it enters while the globe is in play. Dragonweave Tapestry shuffles its spellbook into our library twice and draws cards whenever we cast dragon or omen spells, while Black Market can give us a lot of additional mana at the start of our first main phase the more creatures die. Next, we have our Sacrifice Fodder. At 1 mana, Greedy Freebooter scries and leaves a treasure token behind when it dies, while Haunt of the Dead Marshes and Persistent Specimen can be recurred from the graveyard. At 2 mana, Bitter Blossom and Dreadhorde Invasion create creature tokens at the cost of life, while Reassembling Skeleton can be returned to the battlefield from the graveyard. Endless Cockroaches returns to our hand when it dies, while 9 Lives Familiar returns to the battlefield when it dies, as long as it has a revival counter on it. Next we have our removal. Annihilating Glare, Eaten Alive, Lash of the Balrog, and Spark Harvest can be cast for cheap if we sacrifice a creature, while Caustic Exhale can be cast for 1 mana if we behold a dragon, pretty much always our commander. Feed the Swarm can destroy enchantments, while Flare of Malice can be cast for free if we sacrifice a non-token black creature. Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos force the opponent to sacrifice creatures whenever our creatures die, while Season of Loss can act as a pseudo board wipe, or draw us cards, or damage the opponent if our graveyard is full. Reaper from the Abyss destroys a non-demon creature at the beginning of each end step if a creature died that turn, while finally, the Meathook Massacre is a board wipe that damages the opponent whenever our creatures die. Our largest category consists of our Sacrifice Synergy cards, including Sacrifice Outlets and creatures that drain the opponent whenever creatures die. Vat of Rebirth can return creatures from our graveyard to the battlefield if enough of our creatures die, while Blood Artist drains the opponent whenever any creature dies, including the opponent's. Corroding Dragonstorm is not strictly a sacrifice synergy card, but works well with casting our commander out of the graveyard. Diabolic Intent can sacrifice a creature to search for any card in our deck and put it into our hand, while Priest of the Forgotten Gods is a sacrifice outlet that, if we sacrifice 2 other creatures, forces the opponent to sacrifice a creature deals 2 damage to the opponent, adds 2 black mana, and draws a card. Spectacle of Destruction can seek non-land cards as creatures die, while Terrors of the Track is an evasive threat that creates a duplicate of itself and drains the opponent whenever creatures die. Meanwhile, Vermin Gorger can sacrifice creatures to drain the opponent. Grim Haruspex and Midnight Reaper draws cards whenever non-token creatures we control die, while Morbid Opportunist draws a card whenever any creature dies, including the opponent's, although it does so only once each turn. Meanwhile, the new Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier from Final Fantasy, is a blood artist on steroids, transforming into one-winged angel if 4 creatures die on the same turn. And if we can make that happen, that's great, because then we get an emblem that acts the same as Blood Artist, making it so much easier to drain the opponent. Warren Soul Trader can sacrifice creatures to create treasure tokens, while Woe Strider can sacrifice creatures to scry and can be escaped out of the graveyard. Ayara, First of Locthwain, drains the opponent when our creatures enter and can sacrifice black creatures to draw a card, while Falcon Wrath Noble is a bigger version of Blood Artist. Venerated Stormsinger also drains the opponent when creatures die, and creates an attacking warrior token that we sacrifice on our end step when it attacks. And other creatures that drain or damage the opponent whenever other creatures die include Sir Conrad the Grim, Dreadhound, and Vein Ripper. Femulus the Infestation creates insect tokens whenever either player sacrifices a non-token creature, and both Femulus and the insects it creates drain the opponent when they attack, while Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, can sacrifice creatures to put -1/-1 counters on creatures and draw cards. Rottenmouth Viper can be cast with a discount if we sacrifice enough non-land permanents to cast it, and accumulates blight counters that force the opponent to either lose 4 life, sacrifice non-land permanents, or discard cards. While Harvester of Souls draws cards whenever any non-token creature, including the opponent's, dies. Finally, Liliana Dreadhorde General draws cards whenever any of our creatures die, makes zombie tokens, can act as removal, and has a game-winning ultimate if we can reach it. Our mana base consists mostly of basic swamps, along with Fabled Passage and Prismatic Vista to search them up and thin out the deck. Phyrexian Tower can add 2 black mana if we sacrifice a creature to it, while Nykthos Shrine to Nyx can add a lot of mana if our devotion to black is high. Our utility lands include Barad-dûr, which can create an orc army token if a creature died, Castle Locthwain, and Bonder's Enclave for card draw, Hive of the Eye Tyrant as a creature land which acts as graveyard hate, the new Midgar City of Mako from Final Fantasy, which can free first cast as an adventure to sacrifice a creature or artifact to draw 2 cards, Takenuma Abandoned Mire for graveyard recursion, Blast Zone as additional removal, Cavern of Souls to make our commander uncounterable, and Fountain Port and Murex to make additional creature tokens as sacrifice fodder. So that's our Ebondeath deck. Now it's time to take it into the queue and play some games. Alright, so we're going to be playing our Ebondeath deck in this week's Midweek Magic event, which is Cascade Brawl. Now I'm playing the deck as shown in the introduction, so I haven't optimized it for Cascade Brawl, but it should still be pretty good, or at least that's the hope. And then of course, as always with Midweek Magic, the first 2 games you win, you get an individual card reward that's at least rare, and for the third, you get a mystery cosmetic. So let's jump in and play some games. On the play, facing Shia, Only 2 lands. I do have some interaction and some ramp. But I think we'll look for 3 lands here. Take our free mulligan. Alright. Still have ramp. We've got 3 lands. We've got Sacrifice Fodder with Dread Horde Invasion and Vermin Gorger as a sacrifice outlet. So I think this is keepable. Opponent leads with Haywire Might, hits Mox Amber. Haywire Might's unfortunate because that means that opponent can exile either Cold Steel Heart or Dreadhorde Invasion. Let's play Vermin Gorger then. We hit Mox Jasper. Opponent hits Gilded Goose. And they've got 1 mana up from the treasure, so they could still activate Haywire Might. Let's play Dreadhorde Invasion here. Cascade into Chrome Mox. I don't think I want Chrome Mox, because I don't want to exile a card from my hand and then have opponent destroy it with their Haywire Might. And then I could attack. Opponent could double block. If they don't, they're trading 2 damage for 2 damage. But then they can just gain 3 life when they sacrifice Haywire Might. So I think we'll leave, we won't attack. Opponent ramps out a Shia. That was unfortunate. Alright, we'll flash an Ebondeath end of turn. Opponent's got a lot of mana. For Nissa. It's loot.
I protect that which cannot protect itself.
Scute Swarm triggers off itself because it's a land.
Harness the elements.
Alright, so opponent is down to one card in hand. They've made a ton of Scute Swarms already. And then they played Goldvein Hydra for X equals 0 just to trigger Scute Swarm again. We'll flash an Ebondeath. We'll get rid of Nissa. Would have preferred to have hit a ramp artifact, to be honest. Alright. So Mox Jasper is active. So I can meat hook for 4, and I think if I do, that kills everything. So we'll hit with Ebondeath. Opponent is up to 55, so it's going to be hard to kill opponent. And then I think I will move Ebondeath to the command zone, because I'm not sure when I'm going to kill. And there we go. Alright. Well, we lucked out there in that we drew the untapped land just in time. Alright. On we go. Almost forgot to see what our first individual card reward was. Magmatic Galleon from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Alright, interesting. Okay, let's keep it up. On the play, think this is keepable. I could use Dark Ritual to ramp out Cold Steel Heart or Corroding Dragon Storm. Opponent hits Stonecoil Serpent, which obviously they don't cast. Or from the Abyss. I could Dark Ritual out Ebondeath. But then I'm cascading off Dark Ritual. I think I'd rather Cold Steel Heart. And then unfortunately I don't have a creature to sacrifice it or the 4 mana, so we'll have to decline. Opponent hits Fang of Shigeki off Quirion Beastcaller. Alright, and then I can play Corroding Dragon Storm and then play Ebondeath off Dark Ritual. It's again gonna have to decline. As you can see, this is what I was talking about when I was saying I haven't necessarily optimized. Let's see. Do I want... I think we surveil both into the graveyard. Getting the Iron Crag off a 6-drop is a little sad, but that's alright. No, they hit the Ambush Viper off Cultivate. No blocks. Surprised they didn't attack with Jesse Zane here. I think we'll decline Chromux because I want to cast Corroding Dragon Storm. Now, the problem is we could just be dead here, because opponent has... No, we're just dead here. So basically, we needed to have happen this game what happened last game, which is we needed to draw Midweek Massacre. Well, that's too bad. Better luck next time. On we go. Alright. On the play, 4 lands, no ramp, but I think this is still keepable. Guess I could wait until end of turn to fetch, but it doesn't really matter. And then I think we'll play Reassembling Skeleton turn 2. So I can ramp into Ebondeath by sacrificing the skeleton to Phyrexian Tower. Mox Jasper, nice hit. Alright, Sephiroth. Opponent's shocked in Blood Crypt, but didn't do anything with it. They play Gwenna, Cascades into Llanowar Elves, that's pretty nice. We hit Mind Stone, don't mind ramp. And now I can even bring Reassembling Skeletons back, because Mox Jasper's online. Alright. Kind of want to sacrifice Reassembling Skeleton to Sephiroth here. 1, 2. I can play Grim Haruspex and Sephiroth and draw a card with Grim Haruspex. Alright, we hit Spectacle of Destruction. That's pretty good. Opponent plays Joda. Cascades into swords to plowshares. There goes Sephiroth. We'll take 5. I think this time we will play Chrome Mox. And then we'll exile Vermin Gorger. Counter spells, not great. I've already got Reassembling Skeleton. And then we're looking for removal for Joda. I'd have to sacrifice Grim Haruspex unless I get Feed the Swarm, so I guess it's Feed the Swarm. Alright, opponent's down to 4. Bet I didn't have Falconwrath Noble. And then I think we'll decline, because I can always get Reassembling Skeleton back, sacrifice it to play Ebondeath. Opponent down to 3. So I think we can kill opponent here. Alright, opponent agrees. Oh, there we go. Alright, let's see what our individual card reward is. Magmatic Hellkite. Alright. Nice land destruction. Okay. Let's see if we can't get our third win in our mystery cosmetic. On we go. Okay. On the play, we've got 3 lands, although currently 2 of them are tap lands. But I could Dark Ritual on 1 and play either Embermouth Sentinel or Mindstone and Haunt the Dead Marshes. I think I kind of like that, and I think it's Embermouth Sentinel, so I can get a land. So we'll try it. Be a little awkward if we hit Chrome Mox off Dark Ritual, because I won't want Chrome Mox, because I want to cast Haunt with the Dead Marshes, not exile it. Although I suppose getting some additional ramp wouldn't be that bad. Anyway, let's see what we hit. We do hit Chrome Mox. I guess if we take Chrome Mox, exile Haunt, I can play Embermouth Sentinel and Mindstone. So, okay, we'll try it. And I will take action. And so this actually works out, because now we'll be able to play Ebondeath this turn. Opponent leads with tap land. We'll flash in Ebondeath, end of turn. Opponent has no turn to play, at least not a proactive one. They've got a counter spell. And then I think if I sacrifice Embermouth Sentinel to Midgar, I won't have the mana to cast Ebondeath from the graveyard. So I think in this case I will move him to the command zone. We'll have to decline Lash the Balrog. Opponent plays Vivi. Hits think twice. Fortunately, the Cascade spell resolves before Vivi enters. And then, let's see here. What to do. I think I want to play a 2-drop, hopefully Cascade into one of my 1-mana removal spells. We hit Greedy Freebooter instead. Alright, and then... I'd have to sacrifice 4 permanents to play Viper. I think I want removal for AB. Now, opponent could have some bounce effect or to tap down Rotten Mouth Viper. Opponent decides to take 4. Sadly, tears the track. Alright, opponent plays Demand Answers. Cascade's pretty good with Vivi. So opponent's got 3 mana. Alright, opponent's tapped out. Will attack. Opponent discards cards. And they have to block the Viper. And then I think we'll flash in Ebondeath end of turn. Alright, opponent cascades into lightning bolt. They go down to 3. They bounce Rottenmouth Viper. Alright, opponent activates Phoebe to flashback, think twice. And they're tapped out. Phoebe attacks. We'll flash in Ebondeath. Hit Grim Haruspex. Triggering Scalding Viper. And there we go. Alright. Let's see what our mystery cosmetic is. Aurelia's Vindicator card style from Murders at Karlov Manor. Alright, there we go. I guess it's better than the usual ones you get, which are the Parallax card styles. So that was pretty nice. Anyway, so that'll do it for our Ebondeath deck. And as you can see, having a commander with Flash was pretty useful. His ability to be reanimated from the graveyard didn't come up as often as I would have thought, just because it's pretty mana intensive. You need to be able to put a creature in the graveyard by some means, and then recast Ebondeath. So I think we sent him to the command zone more often than not. But being able to flash him in end of turn was pretty useful, even if he comes into play tapped, so you can't ambush anything. Although with only 2 toughness, he's not really good at ambushing anyway. Anyway, so I don't think Ebondeath is the most powerful commander, but he is good in a sacrifice shell, or at least that's been my experience. And he's a lot of fun. So that'll do it. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed. Do please like and subscribe. If you'd like to see another commander from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, or maybe one from the new Final Fantasy set, let me know in the comments. And have a good one. Bye.